We see evidence that Neanderthals were capable of symbolic thought, burials with pigments, ornaments carved from animal bones, and even cave art that predates Sapiens in some regions. This was no inferior species, but a people with culture, memory, and creativity. Yet, as Sapiens spread, their cultural dominance may have overwhelmed Neanderthal traditions. Over time, even those who survived by joining Sapiens bands may have seen their identity dissolve. Their voices, their rituals, their very sense of us could have been absorbed into the expanding Sapiens world until nothing distinct remained. Extinction, then, was not just about death. It was about erasure and an entire way of being human. Swallowed into another, leaving behind only faint echoes in our DNA and scattered bones in cold caves. But here lies the chilling twist. If they were absorbed into us, does that mean Neanderthals never truly went extinct? Or have we been carrying them all along, hidden in our blood and forgotten in our history? The mystery of whether Neanderthals were truly a separate species or simply another branch of Homo sapiens has ignited one of the fiercest debates in anthropology. By the classic biological definition, two groups that can interbreed and produce fertile offspring are the same species. And here is the unsettling truth: Neanderthals and modern humans did exactly that. The very fact that non-African populations today carry around 2% Neanderthal DNA proves that these unions were not only possible, but successful enough to leave a permanent mark on our genome. Yet some scientists insist they were separate, pointing to their robust skulls, heavy brows, and stockier frames as evidence of a split. But is appearance alone enough to draw such a hard line? After all, Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons shared a recent common ancestor, lived side by side, and produced children who in turn had children of their own. That kind of generational continuity is not the hallmark of two species drifting apart. It's the hallmark of one species adapting in different ways to different environments. But the debate goes deeper. The British Natural History Museum has argued that cultural evidence, burials, ornaments, cave art should be excluded from the definition of species since behaviors are too plastic and spread too easily. Yet isn't this dismissal short-sighted? If Neanderthals buried their dead, made symbolic jewelry and painted caves, then they possessed the same cognitive spark that Sapiens did. Behaviors aren't meaningless noise, they are windows into the brain itself. To ignore them is to erase part of what it means to be human. And then there is the genetic closeness. Neanderthal and modern human genomes differ by less than 0.1%. Compare that to the gulf between humans and chimpanzees, and the difference is almost invisible. If the yardstick is genetic distance, Neanderthals and Sapiens were undeniably close, so close, in fact, that calling them different species may say more about our desire for separation than about the science. So what do we call them? Rivals? Cousins? Or perhaps one people divided by time and circumstance, their reunion inevitable when Sapiens spread across Europe. If this is true, then Neanderthal extinction was not extinction at all, but assimilation. Their bodies may have vanished from the earth, but their genes, their ideas, even their symbols, live on in us. The more we study them, the clearer the line becomes not between us and them, but between the story we once told about human purity and the truth we now uncover, that humanity was never pure, it was always a mosaic. If Neanderthals were absorbed into us rather than destroyed, then their extinction was not a clean ending, but a transformation, and that forces us to confront a darker question: what does it mean for one branch of humanity to disappear into another? For generations, science painted Neanderthals as brutish failures, a species that could not compete with our supposed superiority, but the genetic evidence unsettles that narrative. Neanderthals are not gone. They live within us, coded into our skin, our immune systems, even perhaps in subtle behaviors. Some genes we inherited from them boost our defenses against disease. Others influence how our bodies process fats or respond to sunlight. Yet this inheritance comes with shadows too higher, risks of depression, nicotine addiction, even autoimmune disorders. It is as though their ghost remains, both gift and burden, stitched into our very biology. But beyond the genes lies the cultural haunting. Archaeology tells us that Neanderthals were capable of symbolic thought, ritual, and perhaps even music. If they were so close to us in both biology and mind, then their disappearance was not an inevitability, it was a loss. And yet, Sapiens spread across the globe tells us something uncomfortable. We were not simply survivors. We were conquerors. Whether through war, competition, or absorption, sapiens have a pattern. Wherever we arrive, others vanish. Giant animals in Australia, the mammoths of the north, the Neanderthals of Europe, all gone within millennia of our presence. So was the Neanderthal fate unique, or simply the first chapter in humanity's long record of dominance? Perhaps this is why their story still haunts us, because in them we see a mirror. They were human, like us, and yet they vanished. We carry their fragments, but not their identity. They remind us that survival is not guaranteed, not even for the strongest. And if one form of humanity could vanish, what does that say about ours? Are we permanent, or just another temporary branch on the tree of life, destined one day to meet the same fate? The story of the Neanderthals is not just a tale of extinction, it is a tale of absorption, memory, and erasure. They did not vanish in fire and blood alone, nor were they simply replaced by something better. Instead, they melted into us, their legacy reduced to fragments of DNA, to shadows in our biology, to whispers in our bones. Their Y-chromosomes are gone, their language forever silenced, their rituals buried beneath the weight of our expanding world. And yet, every person alive outside Africa still carries a piece of them, proof that their story did not end, it was woven into ours. The haunting question is not why they disappeared, but why we survived. Was it weapons? Was it numbers? Was it luck? Or was it something darker, something about our kind that consumes everything else it meets? The Neanderthals force us to look at ourselves not as the victors of prehistory, but as the inheritors of a shared humanity we try to forget. They remind us that extinction is not always absolute. It can be slow, silent, and hidden within survival itself. And if their fate teaches us anything, it is this: no species, not even ours, is permanent. One day, we too may be reduced to fragments, scraps of DNA, artifacts buried in ash, whispers in another species' story. For now, we are the last humans standing, but we are not alone. Every step we take, every breath we draw, carries with it the ghosts of Neanderthals walking with us, still, unseen, yet unforgettable. Beneath the cold shadows of the Ice Age, two species of human walked the earth: Homo sapiens, our direct ancestors, and the Neanderthals, a powerful, resilient population that had thrived in Europe for hundreds of thousands of years. Their meeting was not just a clash of civilizations. It was a collision of destinies, one that would forever alter the human story. For decades, scientists believed that modern humans simply replaced the Neanderthals, erasing them in a swift wave of conquest. But new discoveries tell a far more unsettling tale, one of forbidden unions, fractured bloodlines, and genetic whispers that still echo in every one of us alive today. The question is, did these encounters produce fertile children, or were they doomed to give rise to human mules, hybrids without a future? Why is it that fragments of Neanderthal DNA still survive in our genes, yet their Y-chromosome has completely vanished? And most importantly, was the extinction of Neanderthals a brutal extermination, or something far stranger, a disappearance hidden within our very blood? The answers are shocking, but I won't reveal everything just yet. Stay with me. The Ice Age was not only a land of mammoths and endless snow, but also the stage for humanity's greatest crossroads. For hundreds of thousands of years, Europe belonged to the Neanderthals, broad-shouldered, powerful, and perfectly adapted to the cold. They weren't mindless savages, as once believed. They buried their dead, crafted tools of astonishing precision, and adorned themselves with eagle-talon ornaments. But then came another kind of human, Homo sapiens, slender and agile, carrying with them new weapons, new ideas, and something else far more dangerous: numbers. Within just 2 millennia of sapiens stepping into Europe, the Neanderthals vanished. The speed of this disappearance is shocking, too rapid for natural decline. Yet, if they were erased, why do fragments of their blood still run through us? Modern humans outside Africa carry up to 2% Neanderthal DNA, proof that our ancestors and theirs met not only in battle, but in intimacy. Still, there's a chilling gap in the record. Not a single living man today carries a Neanderthal Y-chromosome. Some scientists believe this means male hybrid sons of Neanderthals and Sapiens were infertile, like mules born of horses and donkeys. If true, this genetic trap would have drained the Neanderthal line from within. Daughters could carry Neanderthal DNA forward, but sons would leave nothing. Was this biology's cruel verdict, or did it mingle with something darker: war, starvation, exile? Demographic studies show the Neanderthal population was already small, perhaps only 70,000 across the entire continent. In such fragile numbers, even a tiny dip in fertility could tip them toward extinction. A mere 4% decrease in young women's birth rates, one model suggests, could doom them in just a few thousand years. But was their end really just statistics, or did Sapiens finish what biology had begun? Archaeological evidence shows a sudden shift, weapons optimized for long-range killing, population clusters spreading like wildfire, and Neanderthal strongholds shrinking. Yet despite this collapse, Sapiens carry Neanderthal traits that improved survival, better immunity, adaptation to cold, even changes in skin and metabolism. So here lies the paradox. Neanderthals disappeared, yet their blood endures. Were they exterminated, assimilated, or something in between, their identity erased as their genes seeped into ours? The truth is both haunting and unresolved, and the next clues lie buried not in bones, but in culture art, tools, rituals that may tell us whether they died as a separate species or lived on inside us. The disappearance of the Neanderthals has long been painted as a tale of weakness, as if they were doomed the moment Homo sapiens arrived. But new discoveries suggest the truth is far stranger and far more unsettling. At their peak around 42,000 years ago, Neanderthals were thriving across Europe, their settlements stretching from the Iberian Peninsula to the icy plains of Germany. Yet, in less than 1,000 years after this demographic high point, their numbers plummeted and soon after they were gone. Such a rapid collapse is nearly unheard of in human prehistory. Was it simple inferiority or something more sinister? One possibility is that their downfall was not caused by a single catastrophe, but by a slow demographic unraveling. Studies show that a population of fewer than 70,000 individuals, scattered in small, isolated groups, was already vulnerable. A slight reduction in fertility, a wave of disease, or repeated losses of adult men in hunting or conflict could have pushed them into a death spiral. Some models even suggest that just a 4% drop in female fertility could have doomed them within 10,000 years. But why then did their decline coincide so perfectly with the arrival of Sapiens? That timing is no coincidence. Archaeological layers show a sudden shift in weaponry, projectiles designed to kill at a distance, something Neanderthals never mastered. This would have been devastating. Where Neanderthals fought up close with spears, Sapiens could strike from far away, killing without risk. Was this technological leap the silent killer, driving Neanderthal populations down in a matter of centuries? Or was there a quieter, more invisible war won of genes? Genetic comparisons reveal something startling. While Sapiens inherited Neanderthal DNA, no modern human carries Neanderthal Y DNA. This absence suggests male hybrids were infertile, a reproductive dead end. If true, every union between Sapiens women and Neanderthal men produced daughters who carried fragments of Neanderthal blood, but sons who left nothing behind. Slowly, generation after generation, this imbalance would drain Neanderthals of their legacy, even as Sapiens absorbed their strengths. A world in which only daughters carried on the bloodline would have profound social consequences too. Female hybrids might be prized, integrated into Sapiens groups, while infertile male hybrids could become outcasts or burdens. Was this the invisible pressure that crushed Neanderthals, not in open war but in the quiet betrayal of biology? Or was it both sapiens' superior numbers and weapons finishing what fertility collapse had already begun? The answer may lie not only in genetics, but in the traces of their final refuges, the places where they made their last stand. As the final chapters of the Neanderthal story unfolded, their once wide-ranging populations shrank into pockets of survival, clinging to the cold plains of northern Europe. Archaeological evidence from Germany shows a sudden clustering of sites. Between 70,000 and 43,000 years ago, densities never seen before in Neanderthal history. It looks less like expansion and more like retreat, as if survivors were being squeezed into smaller regions by the advancing tide of sapiens. Studies describe how Neanderthals may have sought refuge along the Elbe and Weser rivers, making their last stand in the icy north, but even here the clock was ticking. The genetic record hints that contact with sapiens was not rare. Encounters happened in Central Asia, in Siberia, and on the European continent itself. These were not fleeting exchanges. They were intimate, shaping the very blood of modern humans. Yet the paradox remains, if interbreeding occurred, why did Neanderthals vanish? Some scientists argue it was demographic weakness alone. Small, scattered populations are fragile, vulnerable to epidemics, famine, and random fluctuations. Others point to direct competition. Sapiens' broader diets, social networks, and ability to adapt quickly gave them an edge. And then there is the haunting possibility of hybrid infertility. If male offspring were sterile, the Neanderthals were essentially bleeding from the inside. Imagine entire generations of children born to mixed unions, daughters absorbed into sapiens tribes, sons left infertile, unable to extend their lineage. Each new birth could feel like survival, yet for Neanderthals it was a trap. Still, extinction was not only a biological fate, it was also a cultural one. In caves across Europe,